Buddy, my name is Benjamin Day.
And I am Jillian Mason.
And this is Medicare for All, the podcast for everybody who needs health care.
See how excited we are at the beginning of the year? We've had a couple weeks off. It was, nice, refreshing.
Yeah, we only did that excited intro once, though. And then it's, whatever, 51 episodes of lethargy coming up for the rest of 2023. No, this is the episode called Bringing the Fight to 2023. It's a new year, obviously, which means everyone is coming out of the woodwork to make their predictions about what's in store for 2023. So we thought, Jillian, why not us as well?
Why not us?
Why not us? In this episode, we're going to make the reckless, unverifiable claims, my favorite types, about the future of the movement for Medicare for All, for healthcare justice, and the public health crisis in this country. We're also going to talk about the political landscape and, yes, how an impending alien invasion might impact our fight for Medicare for All. These are the kind of things we have to plan for.
Because other people aren't talking about it, and that makes me nervous.
No. And I know you have the inside scoop on the aliens, so we're going to be really turning it over to you because you did a lot of the research for this episode, especially about the predictions of the future aspect. Do you want to fill us in before we
I do. And I also just want to say that this is actually really within my professional wheelhouse.
Right. I forgot about this.
I don't think that I mentioned this to you, Ben, but I actually used to read tarot cards. It was the late 90s and we were all Wiccans. And so I used to read tarot cards for money. And then at some point I actually filled in for the legendary Miss Cleo, famous television psychic at a party. Yeah, no, it's true.
I do remember when you were leaving Boston, moving to Texas, this was kind of your career plan.
Yeah.
It was to go back into the tarot card reading business.
I mean, it was either that or come to work for healthcare now and fight for Medicare for all. But
you maybe have made the right choice.
Maybe. If I were a real psychic, I would know. But okay, so let's get to the real psychics because I was really just a con artist. But these are real people. And, those of you who grew up in the days of the Weekly World News will remember that, the new year is the time when all of the psychics come out and they give their predictions for 2023. And I think that, most psychics are pretty much as well informed as most political pundits. So we should pay equal attention, So I first wanted to start with the living Nostradamus. That's the Brazilian, he calls himself an investigative paranormal. His name's Athos Salome, but again, known as the living Nostradamus. He says that Elon Musk will reveal himself to be the Antichrist and start World War III.
I almost believe this one, actually. This doesn't strain credulity that much.
I think it actually is not so much a prediction. I think it's just
following
statement
the trends.
Of fact. Right. It's already happening.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, but that's the living Nostradamus. And I always think the best predictions come from dead people, right? Yeah. So
after death or before death?
Either or. So we got to turn to Baba Vanga. Do you know Baba Vanga?
I do not.
That's really your loss. She's known or was known as the Nostradamus of Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually even predicted her own death in 1996. So we know that she's on point.
Oh, wait, did she kill herself?
Oh my God. So dark. So dark.
It makes predicting her own death really easy, though.
Do we have to put a trigger warning on this episode?
No, carry on.
Regardless, Baba Vanga actually had, before she died, she had some really interesting things to say about 2023, and I just wanted to bring them up because they feel important here. One is that she said that in 2023, governments were going to ban natural birth and insist that we grow babies in laboratories.
Oh, okay. That sounds not terrible deal for women, to be honest.
I mean, actually, compared to Texas, where we have forced natural birth, I might actually prefer the laboratory version.
She's onto something.
Yeah. And then finally, this is the one that's getting the most news. If you Google Baba Vanga right now, it's all over the place in all the reputable news sources. And that is that she believed that an alien invasion was coming for us this year, and that it would knock the Earth off its orbit.
Oh, so these aliens are like bad at parking. They're not gonna stick the landing, and they're gonna knock us off course.
It's true.
Right.
But for Ben, for us, right? Like, I feel like the really key question here is: will aliens be covered under a Medicare for all plan?
Oh, good question. Good question.
question.
I think the answer is yes. Everybody in, nobody out, right? If they need it, do they even need medical attention? They might not need it.
It's true. Maybe they'll bring Medicare for all with them.
Well, that's my new organizing plan for the year. I mean, do we get to make our own mystic predictions for 2023? Or
Absolutely.
Is this only the experts?
Prognosticate.
Okay. All right. So you told me you were doing this shtick. So I took out my own tarot cards. I also, I rolled some bones on top of the tarot cards. And then I put the ball. What is that called? The
crystal ball?
I put the crystal ball on top of the bones. To make sure I got every layer correct.
And then sprinkled it with tea leaves.
Yeah. You're onto the process here. I predict that the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, will die of a heart attack before the end of the current legislative session.
I mean, honestly, the way he set things up, right? Like, anyone can challenge him at any moment. So, like, tomorrow, someone could be like, he is incompetent, and I call for a vote.
Oh, tomorrow someone will. Tomorrow, this is going to happen all year long. This is going to be...
Yeah. So that heart attack might be coming any day now. It's amazing.
Yeah. Before or after his, 87th vote of no confidence or whatever. All right, but to bring this back down to earth just for a moment, to talk about, what actual public health experts and medical providers are saying about what might happen in the coming year. Is 2023 the year that we finally get so healthy that we no longer need healthcare?
Yeah, no, actually, no, it's not. It actually turns out, Ben, that things are kind of bad.
I would never. After the past 3 years, bad public health crisis. No, just tell me what it is. Tell me how bad.
All right. So this fall, a lot of public health folks, including some folks at Yale, were warning about what they were calling the coming triple-demic, and a lot of people might have heard about this in the news, right? So, the triple-demic, right? Triple, is basically the combination of COVID, the common flu, and RSV, which is that respiratory illness you've probably been hearing about that's really prevalent in children and is really sad. But basically, the idea of the triple-demic was that the combination of all three of these things, two of which are very much like normal winter respiratory illness things, but that the combination of the three would actually be a really huge strain on our hospital system this winter. And guess what? It's still sort of happening. So basically, we found out that during the holiday season, available hospital beds were really, really hard to find all over the country. And we're seeing reports now in the new year from places like Oregon and New Jersey that local healthcare facilities are still completely overburdened. I mean, the good news about this is that some experts think that we're actually over the worst of the flu and RSV for this season. But the bad news is that COVID infections have continued to rise.
They're still going up.
Yeah. So it turns out that's still a thing.
And we kind of covered this in the last 2 years of podcasts, but just out of the United States, because we have this for-profit based healthcare system. And we don't have a national healthcare system that's planned out. We tend to have fewer hospital beds than most developed countries with universal healthcare systems. We have like the just-in-time system of healthcare, where it's like we'll just keep enough beds warm to like meet what we expect to be the demand, unless you get a crisis, and then you're totally screwed. But
And there's also a staffing crisis as well.
Right.
And people will tell you that this is a shortage of nurses or a shortage of doctors, but we know, especially from our friends at National Nurses United, who we work with a lot, that's actually kind of a bullshit argument, right? There is no shortage of nurses. There's a shortage of good nursing jobs and safe staffing in our hospitals. And so they're actually, our friends at NNU are actually calling this a quaddemic, right? And it's like, on top of all these illnesses that we're dealing with, we're also dealing with the way that the hospital industry has exploited the pandemic for profit, right? And gone to these kind of crisis staffing levels that mean that basically, nurses are overwhelmed with patients. And that's why when you go to the hospital, your nurse is caring not only for you, but for 10 or 12 or 15, 30 other people, which is, every public health expert basically says that that's a bad idea, right? So, again, we're in the midst of the triple/quaddemic, and so it kind of seems like we're still going to need to fight for Medicare for all this year.
Shocker.
So, okay, but that being said, right, like there's a new legislative session starting. That's got to be good news, right, Ben?
Well, it's going to be an interesting 2 years. Obviously, things are different from the last 2 years that we had. We had very narrow Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate, and then Democrat was in holding the presidency. And really, the only thing standing in the way of passing at least some progressive legislation were Democrats themselves, which did happen and in abundance. But there were organizing opportunities created within the legislature. House, we knew that health legislation was going to happen, so we had to get in there, get Medicare for All's voice in there, especially focusing on the current Medicare program, trying to expand it, trying to kind of pave the way for Medicare for All. We're out of that situation for the next 2 years. So we know Republicans took the House, Democrats retained control of the Senate, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So what does that mean for us, like our movement planning for the next year or so?
Are we going to pass the big law? We're always talking about this federal Medicare for All Act, right? That we've been trying to pass ever since it had a different name. And so, is this the year it happens? And no spoilers, but the answer is no, right?
No, we're not even going to pass the little law. I mean, very little legislation is probably going to pass in a split Congress. This is just the weird way that America works. And if you're not familiar with this, most countries don't work like this. Most countries have a parliamentary system where
funny story.
Yeah, parties run on particular issues. You elect them, they choose their own prime minister, and they can actually do the things that they are elected to do. Not so much in here. we get paralyzed for years, even decades, and no major legislation can happen whatsoever. So it's going to be a very, very different situation from the last 2 years. So just a couple of things to look out for the coming year. We've already seen the Republican Party implode in its first few days in office in the House. There's that 4-seat majority, and there's way more than 4 far right-wing crackpots that just want to.
Oh my God, it has been so delightful. Can we just take a moment to say how happy that has been? How nice a moment.
I've been equal parts enjoying and equal parts a little bit terrified by it, but I've definitely had the joy, the Schadenfreude as well.
Yeah, settle into the Schadenfreude.
Yes.
That's the only kind of joy you're going to get this year.
Right. So, one thing, it was enjoyable with Speaker of the House vote, which is the most inconsequential vote, totally procedural that you'll have all year. But it might not be as exciting when, for example, they have to pass a budget to fund government. When the same meltdown happens, it could be really scary for a lot of the country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I think we're going to have to look for that situation, basically the everything melting down situation in the House. But we also, one other opposition thing with the GOP holding the House since they also can't pass any law that's going to pass the Senate or get approved by Biden, they're probably going to use the House to just like try and make Democrats look bad, do investigations of Biden and his family, and you could kind of imagine how that's going to go. But
I can't wait to hear more about Hunter Biden's
there's
laptop.
going to be a lot of Hunter Biden, maybe Clinton too. Hillary Clinton, is that all done yet? Maybe they still stuck on that.
There's always something.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say it's out of the question that they wouldn't try to go after Medicare for all, like have an anti-Medicare for all hearing or something like that. Anti-Obamacare hearing, who knows? So we want to prepare for that. But the good news, obviously, is that both Medicare for all bills will have to be reintroduced next year. And that means we're going to have to do a big national organizing push to get co-sponsors onto the House bill and the Senate bill. And that includes all of the folks who already co-sponsored the bill last session. And you might think that's easy. You might be like, oh, they supported it last session. We'll just get them back on board. They'll be easy to sign up. It actually takes a tremendous amount of organizing just to get legislators back on board the bill, unless they're like super supporters.
This is basically like what's happening to Kevin McCarthy. Maybe we shouldn't be laughing.
Right, yes. Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, we are. No, I won't even say that. I was going to say we're all Kevin McCarthy, but we're not all Kevin.
We're not.
That's wrong. That's so wrong. All right. So prepare for the worst. The other thing I think we need to just keep in the back of our minds or in the front of our minds is the privatization of Medicare, which that was happening underneath this Democratic trifecta, right? It was happening largely under executive order that was started by Trump and then continued by the Biden administration with some like minor tweaks, but not much. And that includes not just expanding Medicare Advantage, but creating these new things where even if you don't sign up for Medicare Advantage, you sign up for traditional public Medicare, you could be just pushed into a private for-profit administered version of Medicare.
Yeah, so that's the ACO REACH program, right?
Yeah, exactly, which has been rebranded a few times. Always Orwellian and dystopian names. So I think those are the big things in Congress that we're going to have to keep an eye on for the next year or two. The other good news scenario is that Bernie Sanders will be chairing the Healthcare Committee in the Senate. This is called the HELP Committee. Help! I can't believe they settled on that acronym, but it stands for Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions.
That actually was just like a secret message from the people on the committee to the rest of the world.
Things are not going well. Help.
Blink twice if you don't think we'll have health, labor, and pensions this session.
Exactly. They intensely focus group that name. So that might provide for some, possible hearings around Medicare for all on the Senate side, which we haven't had many of in the past. Maybe we can take some action on the Senate side. So that's my
Bernard. Come on
state
through.
of Congress regarding Medicare for all for the next year or so. But so I guess a question for you, Jillian, outside of Congress, outside of the alien attack, poor landing on Earth. Are there any major threats or opportunities you see facing the Medicare for All movement going into 2023? What are we going to do with ourselves next year, given the logjam in Congress?
I always think that actually that it's always a good moment when we get to think about what we're going to do with ourselves, right? Because we're always in that reaction mode, right?
True.
And so in moments like this, I feel like we got a second to not to breathe, because that sounds too healthy, but at least to scramble around and try to get our shit together.
Right. Not be reacting all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's there are also some opportunities, right? Because 2023 is a local election cycle, and that could be a really good opportunity to build support for Medicare for all, from the bottom up, right? We have our Patients Over Profits pledge that we're working on with the nurses union, and oh my gosh, People's Action, yes.
Woo, woo.
Woo, woo. And that's basically a pledge to get candidates to stop taking money from the big healthcare industries, right? And so that's when we have a local election cycle, it's a great moment to kind of demonstrate that people on the ground are actually caring about this issue and actually want to see big healthcare money out of politics. So
Right. And yeah, the goal of that campaign is to get the big fish eventually, to get members of Congress, senators, candidates for president. But the way we get there is to start with the local elected officials.
Yeah, people who are not involved in the crazy dance that is DC politics. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I mean, I think ultimately though, like aside from those like kind of local opportunities, in terms of like the big stuff, right? We're really gonna have to make a lot of our own work. And it's not, like you said, right? Like build back better. Like that was handed to us, right? Like we had to react because something was gonna happen. But sometimes it's not handed to us. And I know you have you have a theory about this, Ben.
Well, no, it's not my theory, but I rant and rave about this all the time. But
Yeah.
Bill Moyer. This is not Bill Moyer's the guy on TV. This is Bill Moyer, the sort of organizing author who wrote Doing Democracy book. He just talks about the stages that social movements go through, and sometimes social movements are in what he calls like a takeoff phase, where healthcare is on the TV, people are kind of, rioting in the streets, like it's on the front page of the news, like there's just a lot of attention to the issue. People are motivated and mobilized to get out there. Even people who don't identify as activists kind of know that something is happening. Maybe they want to be part of the change, or they're worried it might affect them. So those are like the takeoff stages. But aside from that, there's these more kind of quiet, normal times, which is most of the time actually. And that's exactly when we have to do what you're talking about, which is kind of building our own campaign work and just doing systematic outreach to the community, where we're meeting people, talking with them, asking about their healthcare story, their experience with the healthcare system, informing them about how Medicare for All works, seeing if they want to get involved, and just like household by household, community by community, building support for Medicare for All, so that when the next takeoff phase happens and there's a big healthcare fight, we are much stronger and we're in a much better position. And if you don't do a really good job of organizing during the normal times, so to speak, the quiet times, when you're not on the front page anymore, you're not on TV, you're kind of working behind the scenes, then guess what? You're not going to do well. You're not going to be able to win during the takeoff times when healthcare is like, the fight's there and we have a chance to win something, or to win it all. So I when I talk to other activists and organizers and volunteers, I'd like to emphasize just how important these like quiet times are when we get to build our own campaign work and do just like movement building stuff.
For real. And like, I think people have a kind of mistaken perception of how change has happened throughout history, right?
Yeah.
That they think that it's just like there's like a spark, right? And it just touches everything off and, all of a sudden there's a fire or whatever.
Yep.
But it's like what you don't see is, all the, 50 years of civil rights activists organizing in churches, building relationships, training up, right? And for that moment when everything sort of touches off or whatever. But
that's so
it doesn't happen, without.
It's like people just remember like, oh, there was a march on Washington that must have created the social change. It's like, nope. It was not the March on Washington. It was just the systematic community organizing that happened for years and years and years before that. So
yeah. As people who have both attempted to organize marches on Washington,
don't do
challenges. But yeah, I think that's like that's actually it's like kind of hopeful. Actually, it's like a moment when we can really like connect with each other, connect with people on a human level.
Right.
So that's like a good New Year's resolution for our movement, right? But now that we've like talked a little bit more about like what the future is going to look like, Elon Musk, the Antichrist, force laboratories, etc. What do you think? Ben, do you have any resolutions for 2023? What are we going to do differently?
You mean my personal life or my work organizing life resolutions?
Oh, I don't care about work. How about your personal one? No, either one. Sorry, Ben's my boss, so I'm not.
I feel like I'm too old for personal resolutions now. I'm like, I've reached the age where you shouldn't set goals for yourself. It's just a bad idea.
Oh, yeah, that's.
And
fair.
since we're the same age, I don't mean to drag you down with me, but
yeah, you are.
Yeah.
But you are.
What do you have personal resolutions for the year? I guess it's not too late. I'll come up with something. I'm gonna have a late resolution.
Yes, I think we should.
I should have at least a January without having any expectations for myself. And then maybe I'll have like a February, like an 11-month resolution plan.
It's really true. New Year's resolutions in January are for suckers. They're
Right.
for amateurs, right? You give yourself 12 months. If you do your New Year's resolution in May, right, you're giving yourself a shorter period of time to accomplish it in, and therefore it's more of a challenge.
That's right. You can keep your gym memberships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Wait, can I tell you about my New Year's resolution though?
Please do.
It's a good one. So about 15 years ago, I stopped driving after realizing that my driving was actually a public health risk.
Do we need to account for you in the Medicare for All plan?
Yeah, sort of, actually. So I've resolved now that I live in Texas that I'm going to start driving again. It's a little bit complicated because my partner has resolved to stop me in that resolution.
I'm not sure.
What are you going to do? But anyway, so 2023 could bring a pentademic of all of the other bad stuff plus bad driving.
Yeah, well, as you said, you are in Texas, right? I mean, the rules are a little relaxed there.
Actually, speaking of Texas, I wanted to tell you the thing that has given me so much hope for the new year, which is, you remember back when we did our Texas episode, I was telling you about my friend Marlena, who was at that point, making up her will because she basically didn't have access to healthcare, right? Like so many people in Texas. And Marlena just called me today, right before we started recording, and told me that our good friend Megan Jackson at the Center for Independent Living, local to Corpus Christi, she helped Marlena to sign up on the marketplace for healthcare. And Marlena had the experience today of buying her first prescription for a $0 copay.
That is kind of awesome.
Can you believe that?
It's like a tiny little piece of what we would all experience under Medicare for All. Just like
that's what I'm saying.
Getting the care we need when you need it without having to worry about money.
I like how it was like
awesome.
Odd enough that she actually felt like she had to call me and tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that is news. So I don't know. Maybe this is the year that we all get a little piece of justice in our healthcare system, and that we all someday will experience that $0 copay.
I did get a test in 2022 that they forgot to bill me for. Does that count?
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, and also, I don't know why you're saying that
publicly.
Recording.
Well, you notice I didn't mention any details about what this was.
Fair.
Or which institution could track me down.
I mean, that's good news too. Again, lots of indications that things are looking up in 2023.
Yeah, but like as you said, and I think that I guess the takeaway from this is, Congress is not going to hand us a lot of healthcare organizing work to do, for better or for worse. I mean, we get some work handed to us by Democrats when they're in power, but also by Republicans when they're in power. If you remember the repeal and replace effort to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, we had to react to that too. We're probably not going to have to do a lot of reacting to major health events that are happening. Major health legislation that's happening. Except at the state level, it's going to be a different picture at the state level, depending on where you're at. But it gives us the opportunity to really focus on the campaign we want to accomplish. And it has to involve growing the movement. That's kind of the only meaningful metric for us, I think. So I prefer that kind of work to reacting to like shitty legislation. So I'm also looking forward to 2023.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, I have to thank our podcast team.
Yes.
I'm about to ship off some Healthcare Now t-shirts to our volunteer team members. To thank
Yes.
them for all their help in 2022, getting us through last year. And I'm looking forward to working with them again this year. Our podcast manager, Angelique Davis, amazing. Our show notes writer, Jerry Katz, also amazing. Audio editor, Christian Brandt, extra amazing. So thank you so much to the team. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the Medicare for All podcast on your favorite podcast platform. This show is a project of the Healthcare Now Education Fund, and if you want to support our work, you can donate on our website at healthcare-now.org.
And that's also, if you wanted one of those great Healthcare Now t-shirts, right, that our volunteers are getting, you could order that on our website as well.
Absolutely. I'm wearing one right now.
Oh,
it's hard to get in frame. So, yes, sorry, I've got a sweater on. It's winter in Boston.
We'll do a better demonstration of our merch in the future episode.
Bye, everyone. Talk to you next time.
Stay safe. Stay dangerous.